The biblical quotes, the twisted timeline. You think you know Pulp Fiction, but what if everything you believed about this film was just the surface? Behind Tarantino's masterpiece lurk secrets so bizarre, they'll change how you watch every single scene. From actors who nearly walked away to props stolen from the director's own pocket, these 20 hidden truths will blow your mind. The night Pulp Fiction won Europe's most prestigious award, half the audience booed, while the other half gave a standing ovation. Picture this: Cannes Film Festival, 1994. The ceremony that's supposed to celebrate high art cinema just handed its top prize to a movie about hitmen discussing foot massages and heroin overdoses. When Tarantino walked on stage to accept the Palme d'Or, the crowd erupted into chaos. Some people were furious that this violent American film beat their sophisticated European entries. Others knew they'd just witnessed cinema history being made. The boos mixed with cheers created this electric tension that nobody expected. But that chaotic moment changed everything overnight. Tarantino became an international sensation before he even left the building. Miramax Films transformed from a small distributor into a Hollywood powerhouse that would dominate the next decade, and all because of a movie that dared to break every single rule in the book. Speaking of breaking rules, Tarantino's famous foot fetish is plastered all over this film. Most viewers miss just how obsessed the camera gets with women's bare feet. Uma Thurman walking barefoot across Jackrabbit Slims, her heels clicking on that checkerboard floor. The extended shot lingering on her feet while she's sprawled high on the couch after snorting Vincent's heroin. Even Butch's girlfriend gets introduced through a deliberate close-up of her bare feet in that dingy hotel room. The camera practically caresses her toes before we even see her face. Then there's that entire conversation between Jules and Vincent about foot massages, whether touching a woman's feet is as intimate as other acts. Tarantino has openly admitted in multiple interviews that he has a serious thing for feet and doesn't try to hide it from his films. Once you notice this pattern, you can't unsee it in any of his movies. But here's something that'll shock you about that infamous car scene. When Vincent accidentally blows Marvin's head off in the back seat, most of that panicked dialogue was completely improvised. The original script just said, Vincent shoots Marvin, the car becomes a bloody mess, and they call the wolf for cleanup. That's literally it. When cameras rolled, Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta started bouncing lines back and forth with zero rehearsal. Jackson's deadpan, "Did you hit a bump or something?" And Travolta's panicked, "The gun just went off. I didn't mean to shoot the son of a bitch," weren't written anywhere in the screenplay. They created that perfect balance of dark comedy and genuine shock on the spot. The way Travolta gets increasingly flustered while Jackson stays eerily calm turned an accidental death into one of the most quoted scenes in cinema history. Things get even stranger when you learn Harvey Keitel shot all his wolf scenes in just 48 hours. The man who delivers those razor-sharp commands like a military general and owns every single second of screen time, he knocked out that legendary performance in 2 days flat. Keitel had limited availability due to other film commitments, so Tarantino had to work around an almost impossible schedule. They crammed all the Wolf's scenes, from that first phone call to the final handshake, into one intense weekend of filming. But here's the twist nobody talks about. Keitel wasn't just an actor for hire showing up for a paycheck. He was one of Pulp Fiction's earliest supporters and used his serious Hollywood influence to help secure funding when other investors were nervous about Tarantino's violent script. Even weirder is how the movie begins, or rather, how it doesn't begin. Next time you watch, pay close attention to what's completely missing. No Miramax logo swooping across the screen. No A Band Apart production credit. No sweeping orchestral music signaling a big studio production. The film opens with pure black silence, then cuts straight to that stark dictionary definition of pulp in simple white text. Nothing else. Tarantino did this deliberately to mess with audience expectations from the very first frame. He wanted viewers to know immediately that this wasn't going to be a typical Hollywood experience where everything follows predictable patterns. The script itself was born in the most unexpected place imaginable. While Hollywood writers were grinding away in studio offices, Tarantino was chain-smoking cigarettes in Amsterdam cafes, scribbling dialogue on napkins and notebook pages. He just finished Reservoir Dogs and fled to Europe to escape mounting pressure and find fresh inspiration. He spent months wandering Dutch streets, eating at local restaurants, and observing how Europeans approached everything from fast food to social interactions. This explains perfectly why Vincent and Jules have that extended conversation about European cultural differences. The Royale with cheese instead of quarter pounder, hash bars being legal, the complete absence of tipping culture. Those aren't random observations thrown in for laughs. They're taken directly from Tarantino's own experiences, walking around foreign cities, eating burgers in unfamiliar fast food joints, and soaking up the cultural dissonance he felt as an American abroad. That iconic restaurant scene was completely fake, and the illusion fooled everyone. Jack Rabbit Slims with its Elvis impersonators, Marilyn Monroe waitresses, and vintage car booth seating felt so incredibly authentic that fans still search online for the real restaurant location decades later. But it never existed anywhere except on film. The entire restaurant was built from scratch on a Culver City soundstage using plywood, paint, and creative lighting. Every single detail was designed and constructed to match Tarantino's specific vision of a pop culture fever dream come to life. After the movie's release, the set became so legendary that replica restaurants opened worldwide, trying to capture that same nostalgic magic. But none could quite match the original's perfect artificiality. Bruce Willis made a career-defining gamble that could have destroyed everything he'd built. By 1994, he was already a certified Hollywood heavyweight, commanding massive paychecks for blockbusters like Die Hard. When Pulp Fiction came along, it was just a tiny independent film, with a budget smaller than Willis's usual catering costs. Willis shocked industry insiders by taking a massive pay cut, reportedly accepting less than 1/10 his usual fee, to play Butch Coolidge. Hollywood whispered that he'd lost his mind, throwing away guaranteed money for an art project that might not even get proper distribution. But Willis saw something special in Tarantino's script and desperately wanted to stretch beyond his typical wisecracking action hero persona. That seemingly crazy gamble paid off enormously, giving him one of his most critically respected performances. The most terrifying scene in the movie used a brilliant backwards camera trick. When Vincent jams that adrenaline needle straight into Mia's chest to save her from the heroin overdose, it looks absolutely brutal and dangerous. The impact feels visceral and real, like you're watching actual emergency medicine happen. But John Travolta never actually stabbed toward Uma Thurman at all during filming. Here's exactly how they did it. Travolta started with the syringe, already pressed firmly against Uma's chest, then pulled it away quickly in one sharp motion. In post-production, they simply reversed that footage to create the perfect illusion of him stabbing downward. Simple but absolutely genius. No expensive CGI effects, no dangerous stunts with real needles, just clever old-school filmmaking that created one of cinema's most intense moments. The reversed motion even gave the injection this slightly unnatural rhythm that enhanced the horror. That legendary dance sequence was mostly improvised magic happening in real time. Tarantino gave Travolta just one bizarre direction before rolling cameras. Dance like you did in Saturday Night Fever, but this time you're high on heroin and trying really hard not to look cool. Travolta took that weird instruction and somehow turned it into pure gold. He mixed classic moves he remembered from the Batman TV show with dance steps from 60s variety programs, then threw in completely original moves he created while the cameras were actually rolling. The result was this beautifully awkward performance that felt both nostalgic and totally fresh. Travolta moved like someone trying to recapture past glory while fighting through a drug haze, which was exactly what Vincent needed to be in that moment. But that wasn't even the most personal prop hidden in the film. Jules's iconic bad motherfucker wallet didn't come from any Hollywood prop department. It belonged to Quentin Tarantino himself, pulled straight from his own back pocket. He'd bought that exact wallet from some random novelty store years before making the movie and carried it around because he genuinely loved the bold statement it made. When writing Jules' character, Tarantino decided to give his personal wallet to Samuel L. Jackson because it perfectly represented the character's journey. Tarantino felt the wallet's crude message captured Jules's transformation from cold-blooded killer to philosophical shepherd walking the earth. After the film's success, replica wallets flooded novelty stores worldwide, but only one was the original that lived in Tarantino's pocket during those Amsterdam writing sessions. The dialogue reaches almost unbelievable profanity extremes. Pulp Fiction drops the F-word exactly 265 times across its 154-minute runtime. That breaks down to nearly 3 F-bombs per minute for the entire movie. In 1994, this made it officially one of the most profane mainstream films in Hollywood history. But Tarantino wasn't just throwing in curse words for cheap shock value. He used profanity as genuine character development, natural comedy, conversational rhythm, and emotional punctuation. When Jules and Vincent casually discuss hash bars or debate foot massages, the F-word flows naturally, because that's exactly how real gangsters communicate. They don't speak like polished movie villains delivering carefully crafted threats. They ramble, argue, curse, and contradict themselves like regular people who just happen to kill for money. The entire production budget would seem completely impossible by today's standards. This film that fundamentally reshaped modern cinema was made for just $8 million total. In current Hollywood terms, that's basically lunch money for one major action sequence. Here's the brutal breakdown. $5 million went directly to actor salaries, leaving only $3 million for absolutely everything else. Production design, costumes, camera equipment, locations, and post-production work, all squeezed into that impossibly tight remaining budget. Every single dollar had to be carefully planned and spent wisely. This explains why even elaborate sets like Jackrabbit Slims were built with basic plywood and minimal construction crews. The production relied on creative camera work, quick lighting setups, and extremely tight shooting schedules to stay financially viable. Uma Thurman almost walked away from her career-defining role completely. When Tarantino first sent her the Pulp Fiction script, she seriously considered turning it down entirely. Coming off sophisticated art house films like Dangerous Liaisons, this violent, darkly comic criminal world felt like completely foreign territory. She had major concerns about the film's overall tone, and especially worried about that intense heroin overdose scene where her character nearly dies. The combination of violence, dark humor, and moral ambiguity made her genuinely uncomfortable. But Tarantino was absolutely determined because he believed Uma was the only actress who could make Mia Wallace work, someone who could be simultaneously dangerous and vulnerable, effortlessly cool, yet deeply tragic. When she didn't immediately accept, he called her and spent hours reading the entire script out loud over the phone, page by page. His passion and commitment eventually convinced her to take the career-defining risk. Originally, Tarantino planned to play Jules himself, before Samuel L. Jackson changed everything. Before Jackson transformed the role into cinema legend, the director seriously wanted to be the philosophical hitman, quoting biblical verses and delivering critiques of European cheeseburger culture. He'd already enjoyed acting in Reservoir Dogs and genuinely loved performing his own carefully crafted dialogue on screen. Everything changed when Jackson auditioned. His first attempt didn't go well, and another actor named Paul Calderon nearly secured the role, but Jackson refused to accept defeat. He flew back to Los Angeles on his own dime for a second audition, determined to prove he understood the character better than anyone else. This time, he walked into that room angry, intense, and completely inhabited by Jules' spirit. When Jackson finished, the room went silent. Then Tarantino simply said, "We found Jules." There was no further discussion needed. Travolta's preparation method was absolutely bizarre and taken to weird extremes. To genuinely understand Vincent's heroin-addicted mental state, he consulted with a recovering drug addict who gave him unusual but specific advice about achieving that floating, disconnected feeling safely. The former addict told him, "If you want to understand how heroin feels, get drunk on wine, soak in the hottest bath you can stand, and just float there for hours. That's the closest you'll get without actually using drugs." Travolta took this advice completely seriously. He would drink wine until intoxicated, then slip into steaming hot baths and stay there for hours, trying to capture that specific, floating, detached stillness that heroin users describe. The goal wasn't acting obviously high in some cartoonish way. He wanted to capture that deeper inner disconnect, the slowed thought processes, and the feeling of drifting between worlds. It sounds bizarre, but it worked. He earned an Oscar nomination and confirmed his comeback. The role almost went to a completely different actor who would have changed everything. Vincent Vega was originally written specifically for Michael Madsen, fresh off his terrifying Mr. Blonde performance in Reservoir Dogs. Tarantino even envisioned Vincent as Mr. Blonde's brother, with serious plans for a Vega Brothers spin-off film. But scheduling conflicts with Kevin Costner's Wyatt Earp forced Madsen to make an agonizing choice. The shooting schedules overlapped completely, and he'd already committed to the Costner project before Tarantino's script was ready. Madsen reluctantly turned down Vincent, and Tarantino grudgingly turned to John Travolta, whose career was in serious decline. Madsen later called it one of the most difficult professional decisions of his life, while Travolta's casting became the ultimate comeback story of that decade. The film's biggest mystery was intentionally meaningless, and that was the whole point. That glowing briefcase drove the entire plot and motivated every major character, but Tarantino and co-writer Roger Avary never actually decided what was inside it. The mysterious golden glow was just a simple light bulb rigged inside the case. Fan theories exploded immediately. Some believed it contained Marcellus Wallace's soul, pointing to that suspicious band-aid on his neck where the devil supposedly extracted it. Others insisted it held gold bars, diamonds, or Elvis's gold suit. The truth is that Tarantino deliberately wanted viewers to project their own desires and fears onto that briefcase. By never revealing its contents, he kept the mystery alive decades later. It became this perfect MacGuffin, important to characters, but ultimately meaningless to the actual story. The timeline scrambling wasn't random chaos, but carefully calculated storytelling genius. Every scene placement serves a specific dramatic purpose in character development. If edited chronologically, Jules's spiritual awakening would happen early, before audiences had seen him commit violence. That would kill the impact of his transformation. By placing his moment of grace at the film's end, Tarantino turned it into this powerful moral payoff after hours of chaos. Jules' decision to try real hard to be the shepherd becomes this redemptive exhale that reframes everything we've watched. The nonlinear structure forces viewers to actively think, revisit scenes, and piece events together themselves. This approach revolutionized Hollywood storytelling, inspiring everything from Memento to 21 Grams. 30 years later, Pulp Fiction still sparks debates, theories, and rewatches. These hidden truths prove that sometimes the most fascinating stories happen behind the camera, from reverse needle tricks to wine bath preparation methods. These weird facts keep the film alive in ways Tarantino probably never expected. Which revelation shocked you the most? The improvised dialogue, the backwards filming, or maybe that personal wallet sitting in Tarantino's back pocket all along? Each discovery adds another layer to a film that's already deeper than most people realize.